There it is. It is on the air. For the next hour, Steve Russell and ESPN basketball analyst Mark Wise will hit the hard court as they look back on the week that was and look forward to the week that is in college basketball. Hoop, there it is. Courtesy of Silverback Concrete, Titan MRI, and QC Kinetics. It's full court press time. Here are Steve and Mark.
Hello and welcome once again to another edition of Hoop. There it is. I'm Steve Russell. Mark Wise is also here as we talk post-season basketball. Zach is our producer. He always does great work. And just a reminder, you can watch us live on Facebook and YouTube. Later, you can watch on an Apple Podcast, Spotify, YouTube Podcast, any of the almost 40 platforms you can find your favorite podcast. Remember to like, follow, and subscribe so you don't miss an episode. This is going to be a good episode because obviously, Mark, we're at the time of the year now where the pedal gets to the metal. So let me ask this to start with. If you are on the committee, my friend, okay, before the SEC tournament has started, who needs to do work from the SEC in your mind still to make the tournament?
Wow, that's such $1 million question. I guess you have to start with Texas first and foremost in terms of the fact that they lost to Oklahoma at home. Oklahoma has probably gotten themselves on the correct side of the bubble, of course, according to Joe Lunardi. But Texas has probably got the most work to do, and you know, they get Vanderbilt in the first game on Wednesday, or not the first game, but in the first round on Wednesday. And now Vanderbilt all of a sudden has lost 2 in a row. But Lunardi told me, I had Vandy, Georgia on Saturday. And so I texted Lunardi about that. And he said both teams are safely in. He said, now, if the loser of the game, if you go and that means Vandy in this case, if you go to the SEC tournament and don't win a game, then you run the risk of being in Dayton. You know, is that such a big deal? No, not for teams that are on the bubble. They'll take Dayton gladly, but you probably would like to avoid it. So that Vanderbilt Texas game, in my view, I think that's an important game on Wednesday.
I was going to ask you about Georgia because you had Vandy, Georgia. Yeah. They were left for dead a couple of weeks ago. What's been the difference in them, Mark?
There's been a couple of things. One is they have finally quit turning the ball over at such a high rate. They got Tyron Lawrence back from a 3-game injury that he had to deal with, and he's played marvelous. Silas Demery has, I think, figured out that it's okay for him to be the lead guard and to kind of be the alpha male in the group from that standpoint. So when you throw in Asa Newell and what he's able to do, and then you throw in Blue Kane as well, I mean, this is a team that's pretty darn good, kind of got themselves in a hole. But 2 weeks ago, they were 4-10 in league play. And now all of a sudden they've won 4 in a row and they're safely in. I think Georgia is a great illustration, Steve, of the beauty of the SEC this year and the ugliness of the SEC this year. And I mean that in a good way on both ends.
All right, let's do our questions of the week. Brought to you by Davis Chevrolet, your premier North Central Florida dealer of Chevrolet. You can send your questions to questions@gatorshows.com, as you can imagine. Mark, a lot of them, so here we go. Parker in Gainesville. Gators didn't play their best against the Rebels, but still won by double digits, won almost every stat that mattered. How good is this team?
Well, this team, according to Jimmy Dykes in the broadcast yesterday, he thinks they're the team poised to go the deepest and have a great shot at winning the national title. I agree with that. The only problem is I have 6 other teams in that grouping. The first part of that didn't play their best. I mean, they won by 19. They made 14 threes. That's a high standard then if that's not good enough.
That's a very high standard. Oh, this is interesting, especially in the world we're in now. Mark says, great senior send off to our three key guards. What will next year look like without these three?
Don't worry about next year. Enjoy this. Forget next year. We'll worry about next year, all of us, when next year gets here.
Mark G, I could have told you Mark W's answer because I've known him for so long, but he's right. He's 100% right.
Enjoy this journey.
That's right. Myers in Gainesville, Odom Electric, packed to capacity again. Second most attended game ever. Why 8 sellouts this year? And it has to be more than winning.
It's not. Period. It's not.
Yeah. There's a song, Everyone Loves a Winner. Well,
yeah.
What?
It's interesting because I got to watch, you don't laugh, but I got to watch part of the first half and part of the second half in two different in the Atlanta airport first and then on the airplane second. So as I'm traveling yesterday, so I saw a good part of the game. The other part of the equation that I want to go back to what I said earlier about not playing their best. The other team has scholarship players and really good coaching too. So sometimes when you don't play your best, quote unquote, you have to give credit to the other team.
Alicia in Jacksonville, the refs owned the possession on Saturday, and it became a dramatic series of bad calls. Why do refs sometimes want to prove their point regardless of right or wrong?
They don't. They make mistakes just like I do, just like the players do, just like the coaches do. The mistakes that they make are a little bit louder than everybody else's mistakes. But no, there's no. I can, having been raised as an official son, I can tell you that, to my knowledge, everyone I've ever come across with in my 752 years of covering this sport, they want to do good. They want to do good by both teams.
Gary and Tampa, we out hustled and out rebounded Alabama. How much more did they need that win than us?
How much more did they need that win than? Well, Alabama's played a brutal schedule. They've kind of had bookend results on opposite ends of the spectrum in this last 3 games. Remember, they lost to Tennessee at the buzzer. They won yesterday, and I'm going to talk more about the game yesterday with Auburn. And then they lost to Florida in between. I mean, anybody playing those 3 games, I think they'd be okay with one win.
Yes. Romeo and Hawthorne. Gators almost went unbeaten in the O-Dome. Has this been done before?
I'm sure it has. I don't know that fact, but I'm sure they've had unbeaten seasons. But again, a marvelous team, a marvelous season, winning 24 games in the regular season. I mean, that's special. That's really special.
It is. Morgan in Gainesville. Condren played his best career game against Bama. Has he played himself into the NBA?
He'll get a look. There's no question about it. He'll go through the process. I've said all along, if you can get through the process, you should. So you'll have to have a wait and see attitude with him. But the way he's played, and more on him in just a few minutes.
Okay. Tyler in Gainesville, how effective was making Bama play half court?
What was the final score? Wasn't the final score 99-94? I mean, I think more importantly was shutting off Bama at the 3-point line. Now, again, the pace of play in the game, Florida dictated for the most part. You cannot score 99 points on Alabama without being willing to run with Alabama, which means they're going to play up and down as well. But I do think Florida's transition defense was very good. But guess where your transition defense starts? When the other team is having to take the ball out of the net all the time, they're not going to be as fast offensively.
No question. Jamie in Miami. Michigan State seems to be the most recent team peaking at the right time. Won the Big Ten. How far can they go?
They're probably in my next group of teams in terms of a team that I think can make the Final Four. I think they're right on the cusp of that. You remember the last 3 or 4 years, everybody's talked about Tom Izzo, is it time for him to retire? Well, you can put that to bed.
Josie in Gainesville, can the SEC be the first conference since the Big East in '85
Yeah.
to put three teams in the Final Four? Which three could do it?
Well, again, you have to start with the four at the top in terms of Alabama, Auburn, Florida, and Tennessee. I personally like Missouri in the NCAA tournament, even though they're kind of in a end of the season funk, if you will. Other than those, if Kentucky's was at full strength offensively, I like them a lot. Texas A&M is going to be a hard out in the NCAA tournament. So again, the SEC's got 6 or 7 legit threats to get to the Final Four, not to win it all, but to get to the Final Four.
Brandon in Gainesville, offensive board seems to be our biggest strength. What's going to keep us from advancing?
Same thing I said last week. If you go 5 for 31 at the arc, one game, and that's all it takes is one bad shooting game. But yes, the getting on the glass is kind of the get out of jail free card if you do have a bad shooting night. So they do have something to fall back on.
Paul in Gainesville, how many SEC teams make the tournament? All of them?
Well, Roy Philpott and I were texting about this. He had the Oklahoma-Texas game last night, and I had the first game, Vandy and Georgia, yesterday. And we were kidding about, wouldn't it be something if LSU or South Carolina ran the table? Could the SEC get 15 teams in? Now, that's not going to happen, okay? And that's no disrespect to South Carolina or LSU, but they're not going to win the SEC tournament. I still think 13 is the magic number. I would be surprised if it's 14, but that will set a new record. And speaking of the 1985 3 teams in the Big East, I was at that Final Four. That Final Four was in Lexington, if you'll remember. And, of course, that was the Villanova Miracle over Georgetown.
Massimino.
Raleigh.
Right? Yeah. Franklin and Gainesville, how do the 2 Tennessee blowouts affect seeding of us and them?
I think they negate each other. I don't think there's any impact whatsoever. It's a great quad 1 win for Tennessee. It's a great quad 1 win for Florida. I don't think losing that game by 20 points either way hurts either team in any way, shape, or form.
Kent and Ocala, St. John's number 6, won their first Big East title since '85.
Right.
If Pitino wins it all, would he be considered one of the greatest of all time?
He's already there. He doesn't have to do anything. He's on my Mount Rushmore of college basketball coaches. John Wooden, of course, has to be the very first one on there. And then we can debate others, but Rick Pitino is on there.
Tony in Gainesville, Buzz Williams single-handedly stopped his fans from storming the court, collaborated with Bruce Pearl to avoid the storming the court after beating number 1 Auburn. How cool was that?
Well, not only was it cool, it has now become the blueprint for how to storm the court. So you're seeing more and more teams do that to avoid the fine. Again, I've said this all along. We talked about this last week. If you think court storming is really cool in the moment, then you've never lived through one. You've never had people climbing over your table to get to the court. So again, it's a great picture. When you see the picture of fans on the court after a big win, the team maybe is still out there milling around. It's a great picture, but court storming in the moment should be eliminated.
Agreed. I was on the football field at Tennessee when they beat Florida, and it was
scary,
frightening.
Yeah,
it was.
Yeah.
And I'm not ashamed to use that word. I was scared because there was people just running all over the freaking place and no idea where they were. Anyway, lastly, Dottie in Atlanta. We beat both Alabama and Auburn on the road. Tell me how we're not a number 1 seed. Can the NCAA make changes to the review system? Reviews take longer than halftime.
Okay, well, those are 2 vastly different questions. So let's work backwards. I've changed my opinion about reviews. I think we have to go to a coach's challenge throughout the game. Now, if you want to say in the last 2 minutes, keep it the way it is, I'm all for it because we need to get those calls right. But we don't need 3 or 4 reviews during the course of play. We need to eliminate the goaltending, the way the goaltending and basket interference is being officiated, because now they're not officiating according to judgment. They're officiating so that they can go to the review at the next dead ball and see, did they get the call right or not? I would prefer that we go to a coach's challenge. And so if you want challenge, whether it was goaltending or not, fine. If you want challenge on a foul, I think you can do that one time. And if you're successful, then you get to keep your timeout. If you don't, it costs you a timeout. So reviews in the last 2 minutes, for the most part, in my view, are still going to stay around.
All right. Those are our questions of the week, brought to you by Davis Chevrolet, your premier North Central Florida dealer of Chevrolet. And again, you can send your questions to questions@gatorshows.com. The play of the week, brought to you by Quality Plumbing. You need a quality plumber? Rely on the same company Gainesville's trusted since 1984. Quality Plumbing, their name says it all. What do you got, Mark?
Well, Steve, I'm going to do 2 different things this week because we came to the end of the SEC regular season. So I'm going to give you, and this will be true for every category, I'm going to give you a play of the week and then a play of the SEC season.
Oh, okay.
So the play of the week, Mark Sears' buzzer beater yesterday to win was great. But if you haven't seen the way St. John's won at Marquette, where Marquette has a shot in the last 5 seconds to win, St. John's has a shot to win in the last 5 seconds. Marquette gets the rebound stolen. And then St. John's scores at the buzzer. It's bizarre. The play is just bizarre. And the play for me of the year, of course, is the Meshack miracle, the shot that Jamal Meshack for Tennessee beat Alabama at the buzzer.
All right, we'll take a break. We'll come back. Much more hoop. There it is to come. Stay with us.
I'm tired of you living in pain, and I want you to get real lasting relief from chronic pain in your knees, back, shoulders, and hips. QC Kinetics can get you moving again with cutting-edge regenerative treatments with no drugs, no downtime, and no surgery. Stop putting it off. Call now and schedule your free consultation. Call QC Kinetics now in Gainesville, Ocala, and the Villages. 352-400-4550. 352-400-4550.
I'm David Steele, voice of the Gators in 1984, when Brian Nasworth began a new journey, starting Quality Plumbing.
And I'm Mick Hubert. When I was the voice of the Gators, I called championship games, while Quality Plumbing was becoming champions for the Gainesville area.
I'm Sean Kelly, the voice of the Gators, as Quality Plumbing celebrates its 40th anniversary. For years to come, I'll be calling games, and Quality Plumbing will continue to be the #1 plumbing company for Gator Nation.
After you work out, you can feel worn out. Reach for Core Power and rise to a whole new level of recovery. Protein to build muscle. Electrolytes to help hydrate. The nutrition you need to power on. Champion your recovery with Core Power.
Florida Victorious is a powerful chapter in UF's NIL story.
We are
Florida Victorious.
Gator fans, let's get on board now, okay?
Florida Victorious, proud NIL partner of the Florida Gators.
The State Farm Personal Price Plan helps you create an affordable price just for you.
Contact local agent Roos Ogra for your personal price plan today.
Titan MRI, North Central Florida's premier independent diagnostic testing MRI facility. At Titan MRI, we're focused on you, the patient, having a great customer experience. Our MRI equipment is modern and 75% quieter than any unit in its class. And our MRI unit has one of the largest openings of any of the newer high-strength MRI units, which allows comfortable scanning for potential claustrophobic and larger patients. At Titan MRI, we look forward to serving you.
over 2 decades, Miapa has been a staple in Alachua County. Start your day right at Miapa, where fast and affordable authentic cuisine awaits.
We're known for serving the best Cuban coffee.
Our secret is in every sip and every bite, bringing the flavor of our culture straight to your palate. Everyone is welcome at Miapa Latin Cafe. Visit us at one of our locations and let us take you on a journey full of flavor. Miapa Latin Cafe, where every bite is a taste of tradition.
A reminder that Silverback Concrete builds firm foundations for generations. You stand on it, we stand by it. Silverback Concrete. Welcome back to Hoop. There it is. Man, we have so much more to talk about. Mark, I want to throw this out there because I've always wrestled with this from a fan standpoint. I'm just going to use Florida as an example. There's been a lot of discussion post Billy Donovan about, making the tournament. Is it a good year if you go out in the first round, et cetera? Florida's had a wonderful, marvelous regular season, a successful season by anybody's measurement. If they were to be upset in the first or second round, there'd be some people that would say, this is not a good year. I totally disagree with that. What say you?
I couldn't agree with you more. It's the beauty and the curse of the NCAA tournament. I get it, man. And the opposite is true also, Steve. If you kind of limp in and you win 3 games in the NCAA tournament, all of a sudden your season was better than it actually was.
That's right.
So from that standpoint, I come back to this equation that I've always done. I think fans should take a look at your 20-year history, the past 20 years. How many times did you win a game in the NCAA tournament? And with that in mind, even Billy Donovan, in his record here, I think his average number of wins per NCAA tournament was less than 2, was like 1.8. And that's including winning it all twice. Mike Krzyzewski's, I think, was like 2.7. It wasn't winning at all. So if that should be that, in my view, that should be your expectation. And I think for Florida fans, they have every right to think that Florida should be in the NCAA tournament every year, and they should win 1 game in the tournament every year. That's meeting your expectations. Otherwise, how do you ever enjoy the moment? So I come back to that, whether we're talking about Kentucky or Florida or UCLA, your last 20 years, go from there.
Yeah, and enjoying it is something that
because all of a sudden it's over now. There are no more home games.
Right. This is it. Done. Coach of the Week brought to you by International Diamond Center. Don't settle for a knockoff diamond when you can get the best diamonds at the best prices. For quality, selection, and value, International Diamond Center, the official jeweler of the Florida Gators. Coach of the Week.
I had this in one of our earlier shows. It's such a wonderful story. Ben McCullum is the head coach at Drake. They played in the Missouri Valley Championship game yesterday. He's the guy who came from Division II and brought 4 starters from the Division II team. Drake is 29-3. They've had a sensational season. So he's my coach of the week. In terms of coach of the year in the SEC, this is by far the hardest category of any awards in the SEC this season. I could easily make a case for Dennis Gates. I could easily make a case for Todd Golden. I could easily make a case for Mark Byington. But for Auburn and for Auburn to do what they've done in terms of lapping the field, and everybody's going to say they're going to overreact. Well, they've lost 2 in a row. They've lost 2 in a row in the most historic year that the SEC has ever had, and they've had this target on their back. They lost at Texas A&M midweek, where Texas A&M kind of was able to do what A&M does. And the marvelous buzzer beater yesterday. Did anybody lose in that game yesterday? I mean, really. Everybody would be thrilled if that were a national championship kind of outcome game. I'm in a photo finish where there are 3 or 4 horses within noses of each other. I'm going to give it to Bruce Pearl.
would you drop Auburn from the 1 line now?
Oh, no. They're the number 1 overall seed, period. Okay. They can lose the first game in the SEC tournament, 15 quad 1 wins. I think the next closest team has 9, maybe 10. I didn't look at it yesterday. Just a sensational season. And they played I think the 3rd toughest non-conference schedule in the country. So they loaded up. They played a lot of good people. They beat a lot of good people. He's my coach of the year in the SEC.
Okay. Team of the week brought to you by Ruse Ogra State Farm Insurance. State Farm agent Ruse Ogra is your go-to agent in Gainesville and North Central Florida for the service you deserve at the price you want. Team of the week.
Well, now I'm going to work backwards this time because my team of the year in the SEC is Auburn because of winning the league so convincingly. Now, everybody's going to say, well, Florida was only 1 game back. Well, they weren't as of a week ago. I mean, Auburn, if I can continue my horse racing analogy, they let up down the stretch, okay? So they're my team of the year. But for me, Memphis, I think it's a team that's not getting talked about enough. It's going to be an interesting because this is a potential bid-stealing conference this year, the American. But Memphis went 16-2 in the American. PJ Haggerty is a first-team All-American. Getting back to my bid-stealing mention, Memphis is the favorite and the only team that can get an at-large bid from the American, and they will if they don't win the tournament. But that's a potential bid stealer. If somebody other than Memphis, if a North Texas, if a UAB, if a Tulane wins the American, then that everybody on the bubble, Oklahoma, Texas, North Carolina, et cetera, they'll be watching the American very closely.
If Memphis doesn't win it, Mark, who's got a chance there?
I think North Texas. I like the way that they have played all season. They've been very consistent. I think they're 14-3 in league play. Yeah, they're in 2nd place. They seem to have the fewest number of dips in performance. They've been very steady.
Okay, by the way, I want to thank Campus USA Credit Union for being with us all year, for comments from fans who have been watching. We appreciate Campus USA Credit Union. We'll take a break, come back. Much more to come with Hoop There It Is.
Silverback Concrete is a family-led team of heavy concrete specialists that builds commercial structures for contractors who expect unrivaled quality, including the head ball coach's restaurant, Spurrier's Gridiron Grill. You only have one chance to make a building that holds up to the highest standards through all kinds of weather. Visit silverbackconcrete.co to see why they're the #1 choice in the Southeast. You stand on it, we stand by it. Silverback Concrete's got your back.
Fans, don't get sacked by high prices. Join the winning team at Davis Gainesville Chevrolet. This week at Davis, score big savings on our all-star Chevy selection, the most awarded brand for new vehicle quality, like Chevy's MVP, the new Silverado, with low 2.8 financing and no payments for 90 days. Plus, we're tackling high prices on the area's best GM-certified pre-owned inventory. So join the winning team at Davis Gainesville Chevrolet on North Main Street.
The most important thing I learned from my father was work ethic and integrity. Never veer away from integrity, even if it costs you money.
International Diamond Center owner Keith LeClaire.
The core value for IDC is to protect the customer.
That means offering the largest selection, uncompromising quality, the strongest warranties, and honest guidance from experts who are not paid on commission. International Diamond Center at Celebration Point. Online, shopidc.com.
Crystal Air and Water, we've got a winning offer for you. As you switch off the AC and turn on the heat, why not upgrade to a new system? Take advantage of our amazing financing options. You can get a 12.99 fixed rate for 5, 10, or 15 years, or you can score big with 12 months, same as cash financing. Don't fumble on comfort this season. Crystal Air and Water has you covered. Call them today at 352-333-0460 or visit acpenguin.com.
License number CMC 1249384.
Is your bank dropping the ball, not playing with heart or skill? Then you need to check out the scouting report on Campus USA Credit Union. That's a 5-star recruit if I've ever seen one. Campus has it all, like great rates and products, friendly service, and smart game plans for you and your money. So why not put some star power in your financial life? Visit campuscu.com or any campus service center today.
Honey, can I recruit you to take the garbage out?
Meldon Law has been serving personal injury victims since 1971. In those days, Jeffrey Meldon's presence as an attorney in the music scene dubbed him with the nickname the Hippie Attorney. And although times have changed, two things haven't: our commitment to bettering our community by helping the injured,
Albert, are you ready to go to the game?
and our love for the Florida Gators.
If you bleed orange and blue, Meldon Law is the firm for you.
At Titan MRI and Imaging, you'll visit the only locally owned and operated MRI imaging center in town. Start feeling better today. It's your choice. TitanMRI.com.
Welcome back to the second half of our Hoop There It Is for today. Time for our Sub of the Week, brought to you by Miapa Latin Cafe. Discover 11 delicious Cuban sandwiches at Miapa Latin Cafe. 5 locations in Gainesville and Alachua, never far from the best Cuban food north of Miami. Sub of the Week, Mark.
Jamin Brakefield, who comes off the bench, who's a wonderful story at Ole Miss. And I think he had like 9 points in the game yesterday against Florida. He's Ole Miss's second leading scorer. But in the Ole Miss win over Tennessee midweek, where Ole Miss came from behind and won, Brakefield as a sub had 19 points in the last 11 minutes of the game. When you look at the play-by-play, everything on the Ole Miss side of the ledger, Brakefield made layup, Brakefield 2 free throws, Brakefield made a 3, Brakefield mid-range jumper. I mean, it was fascinating to watch. Tennessee had no answer for him. So Jamin Brakefield, who's really, he's one of the many things that is right with college basketball. He's the Sub of the Week. And my 6th man of the year for the SEC is Caleb Grill of Missouri. He's had a fabulous season, came back from injury a year ago. I think he will be the landslide winner when the awards are announced later this week.
Mark, you brought Tennessee up. I think I know what you're going to say, but let me ask the question anyway. Tennessee has a wonderful basketball history.
Yeah.
But not ever to a Final Four, right? So does that play into anything with different groups when you come to the postseason?
Well, it's a really interesting question because it sort of implies does the coaching staff, in some way get uptight about that. And if coaching staffs are uptight, then players get uptight. And so it can impact performance. But I got to tell you, I'm not a big believer in that. I think that's a small percentage. Rick Barnes has been around long enough. He's not going to be uptight. The telling sign for me are guys that are performing well for Tennessee. And I'm talking about Chaz Lanier. He's never been there before. And Mike Morgan and I did our awards on our game yesterday. He's our transfer of the year in the SEC. I don't have one of those on this particular show. I can't imagine where Tennessee would be this year without Chaz Lanier taking up the offensive slack from Dalton Connect, who was so good for Tennessee a year ago. So from that standpoint, that's always interesting to me. And a lot of the players who have played up, transferred up, will they perform in the NCAA tournament? That's a big question mark.
Okay. Games to look for, brought to you by Florida Victorious. Game-changing plays, life-changing impact. Florida Victorious, proud partner of the Gators, on and off the court.
Well, we had a couple of Champ Week decisions made yesterday. Tonight, the Sun Belt Finals are on. Tuesday night, if you want to get a look at a 5-12 team, and I'm talking about a 12 team, I have the Southland Conference tournament. The first semifinal is at 7 o'clock. That's McNeese, who's the favorite to win the tournament. That's Will Wade, who coached at LSU, and before that, Chattanooga. He's got a really athletic group. On Wednesday, the bubble starts coming to play, and I'm talking about the SEC specifically. There are two games that I want to draw your attention to. The Texas Vandy game at 3:30 has all kinds of NCAA tournament ramifications, and then the Oklahoma-Georgia game becomes, I think, maybe a validation game for Oklahoma if they can get that. If not, they'll kind of sweat it out on Selection Sunday. On Thursday, there are all kinds, Thursday through Sunday, there are all kinds of conference tournaments going on. Everybody will want to pay attention, I know, to the SEC specifically. But I talked about the bid stealing leagues. So if you're wanting to watch other games other than the power conference tournaments, here are some bid stealing leagues that I think if you're channel flipping, if you're a hoop junkie, if you just want to kind of watch what's going on. The American I mentioned, the A10 is that way. By the way, Dayton and Anthony Grant had a great road win Saturday at VCU. I think the Big West is going to be really interesting. UC Irvine, UC San Diego are kind of bubble teams. They don't have the same kind of resume, but they've had great years. The Valley, I mentioned that. That's one to keep your eye on. And then the Mountain West. The Mountain West is really interesting because I think they've got, and by the way, Richard Pitino on Saturday won the Mountain, I think Friday night actually, won the Mountain West outright. Congratulations to him. He was a previous winner on this show this season. But the Mountain West probably has 4 or 5 teams that could win that tournament, and that could be another bid stealer.
All right, Baller of the Week brought to you by Crystal Air and Water. Family owned and operated Crystal Air and Water services air conditioners, furnaces, boilers, and more for Gainesville, Alachua, and nearby areas. We're not comfortable till you are. Baller of the Week, Mark.
I don't think you can go any further than Gainesville, Florida. I think Alex Condon, the week he had, where he averaged 22 points in the 2 wins, 12.5 rebounds, made threes. I mean, he was a complete package at the 5-man. I think he's completely healthy. And then my baller of the year for the SEC, Janai Broome. It's going to be a photo finish. I keep coming back to these horse racing analogies as if I have a horse racing problem. Janai Broome and Cooper Flagg. It's going to be a photo finish. I don't know who's going to win. I would be tempted as a voter, just split it, give it to both of them. They've both been sensational for completely different reasons. In my view, because Broome has done what he's done in the historically great SEC, I would give it to Broome. But my goodness, Cooper Flagg is a difference. He changes the way you have to play against Duke on both ends of the floor.
We're going to take a break and come back, and I'm going to put Mark's coaching hat back on because you've got teams like Florida, Auburn, and especially if you're Auburn, as you said, Mark, they could lose. So as a coach, do you think about resting your players in this tournament? We'll get Mark's answer when we get back. Stay with us.
Titan MRI, North Central Florida's premier independent diagnostic testing MRI facility. At Titan MRI, we're focused on you, the patient, having a great customer experience. Our MRI equipment is modern and 75% quieter than any unit in its class. And our MRI unit has one of the largest openings of any of the newer high-strength MRI units, which allows comfortable scanning for potential claustrophobic and larger patients. At Titan MRI, we look forward to serving you.
The most important thing I learned from my father was work ethic and integrity. Never veer away from integrity, even if it costs you money.
International Diamond Center owner Keith LeClaire.
The core value for IDC is to protect the customer.
That means offering the largest selection, uncompromising quality, the strongest warranties, and honest guidance from experts who are not paid on commission. International Diamond Center at Celebration Point. Online, shopidc.com.
I'm David Steele, voice of the Gators in 1984, when Brian Nasworth began a new journey, starting Quality Plumbing.
And I'm Mick Hubert. When I was the voice of the Gators, I called championship games, while Quality Plumbing was becoming champions for the Gainesville area. I'm Sean Kelly, the voice of the Gators, as Quality Plumbing celebrates its 40th anniversary. For years to come, I'll be calling games, and Quality Plumbing will continue to be the #1 plumbing company for Gator Nation.
After you work out, you can feel worn out. Reach for Core Power and rise to a whole new level of recovery. Protein to build muscle. Electrolytes to help hydrate. The nutrition you need to power on. Champion your recovery with Core Power.
Fans, don't get sacked by high prices. Join the winning team at Davis Gainesville Chevrolet. This week at Davis, score big savings on our all-star Chevy selection. The most awarded brand for new vehicle quality, like Chevy's MVP, the new Silverado, with low 2.8 financing and no payments for 90 days. Plus, we're tackling high prices on the area's best GM-certified pre-owned inventory. So join the winning team at Davis Gainesville Chevrolet on North Main Street.
Over 2 decades, Miapa has been a staple in Alachua County. Start your day right at Miapa, where fast and affordable authentic cuisine awaits.
We're known for serving the best Cuban coffee.
Our secret is in every sip and every bite, bringing the flavor of our culture straight to your palate. Everyone is welcome at Miapa Latin Cafe. Visit us at one of our locations and let us take you on a journey full of flavor. Miapa Latin Cafe, where every bite is a taste of tradition.
Let's begin. Party on, party people, let me hear some noise.
If you've got joint pain in your knees, shoulders, hip, or back that won't go away, you need to check out QC Kinetics for long-lasting relief. QC Kinetics, 352-400-4550.
And Silverback Concrete builds firm foundations for generations. You stand on it, we stand by it. Silverback Concrete. All right, before we get to the rest of our questions here, Mark, let's explore the question I was going to ask you.
Yep.
I certainly, from a fan standpoint, see the temptation of doing that. But is that in a coach's DNA?
No. I've said this several times in the past week. I think I would treat, now you're talking about the teams at the top.
Yes.
If you're on the bubble, you've got to win it. So
absolutely.
You don't worry about that. And teams like Kentucky, Missouri, the teams that are already in, I'm not worried about that either. I said this the other day a couple of times in some interviews that I would treat the SEC tournament. Now, again, this is me, as if it were the third game of a 5-game swing on the West Coast for an NBA team. Meaning this, early in the game, I'm going to substitute liberally. I'm not going to overextend anybody in the first 20 minutes. No one's playing 18, 19 minutes. With 10 minutes to go in the game, I'm going to see what the score is, and I'm going to try and go win it. That's kind of the way I would treat it. Why do I say that? Auburn and Florida played, and there's precedent here, and it seems to be a trend. Auburn and Florida played in the championship game last year. Marvelous SEC tournament. Auburn wins the title. They're all excited, as they should be. Neither team wins a game in the NCAA tournament. Alabama goes out early in the tournament, goes to the Final Four. Are the two absolutely connected? No, of course not. But the year before, Alabama beat Texas A&M in the championship game. A&M did not win a game. Alabama was a #1 seed overall. They did get to the second weekend, but then they got upset by San Diego State. Again, are the two connected with an absolute certainty? No, not at all. But as rugged as the SEC is, for instance, Auburn, Alabama, the game, I'm assuming you saw some of the game yesterday.
I did.
Would you say that was a physical game?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, can you imagine playing 3 of those in a row in 3 days? So I just think you might come out of that too beat up. So that's a real concern. Coaches, if you gave them truth serum, they would admit it, but they're not going to admit it publicly.
Okay. Let's do our top 4 teams, brought to you by Fairlife Core Power. Discover Core Power Protein Shakes by Fairlife. Explore our 26G and 42G high-protein drinks, perfect for workout recovery and nutrition.
Again, I'm not dropping Auburn yet. I've got Auburn, Duke, Houston, and Florida, same as the last couple of weeks. I see no reason to change that order. I do think Alabama is probably nipping at Florida's heels for the that fourth number one seed that Florida has right now. The thing that Alabama has a complete, a better quote unquote overall resume in terms of the number of quad one wins and whatnot. But Florida has the thing that Alabama doesn't have, and that's two road. Now, Alabama got one yesterday, but two road wins like Florida has. Nobody has the one at Auburn. So that's the reason why I have Florida ahead of Alabama. And I think most bracketologists have Florida ahead of Alabama.
In your mind, is there much of a difference in being a 1 seed versus a 2 seed?
Well, not really. Statistically speaking, both have easier paths in the first round of the NCAA tournament. And I get it. Everybody's going to say, well, what about Fairleigh Dickinson? What about UMBC? I get it. Okay. That's 2 out of 2 million. Okay. So it's not going to happen. So I don't think there's a big difference. The only difference would be is, if you're that last number one seed, you're the last team placed in the bracket. So you most likely would have to go out of your region, because the way the NCAA tournament works, for those of you who don't know, with the number one seeds, if Auburn's the number one seed, they get to dictate which regional site they want to go to. And everybody wants to play as close as they can. Then sure. Duke would get to choose, and then Houston would get to choose. Well, as that would turn out, most likely Florida would have to go west.
All right. We're going to do our Gator women's basketball check-in, brought to you by Meldon Law. With 50 years of experience, the only accident law firm partner of the Florida Gators, Meldon Law, won't back down. And Mark, I saved a question from the questions of the week as it relates to this.
Yeah. What a good win that they had. Yes. Beating Alabama, upsetting Alabama, getting to the third game of the SEC tournament before falling to Texas. By the way, Texas, have you seen Madison Booker play?
Yes.
Oh, my goodness. 16 points a game, 6.5 rebounds, almost 3 assists. Her shooting numbers are off the charts. Texas and South Carolina are going to meet in the championship game. I think that's must-watch TV. But go ahead. I'm sorry.
Dean in Jonesville said they won 2 consecutive games against Alabama and Auburn before running into LSU. Can you see growth in the team?
Again, don't overreact to 1 week. I don't know. I don't know that answer. There's so many things that go into evaluating a season. You have to take into consideration injuries and what happened along the way. What kind of schedule did they play? Were they overscheduled? Were they underscheduled? So there's a lot of things that go into that kind of evaluation.
Well, I will say this. The only thing that I see and looking, I've watched them play, I don't know, 5, 6 times. And maybe I'm the problem, because every time I've watched them play, Mark, they've had trouble on the defensive end.
Right.
Now, sometimes when you play, South Carolina and LSU, there's a reason, because they're good at, offensive teams. But I think that's where Florida's got to they can score. I mean, Liv McGill was marvelous.
Right.
But they have trouble stopping teams. I think if they take the next step, it's going to have to be what they do on defense. Would you agree?
I would agree, but I want to bring this up to the 2 new programs. They didn't come in the middle tier of the SEC. Right. I mean, Texas is who they are. Vic Schaefer is who he is. Oklahoma is really good. I got to see them live when they played at LSU, because I had LSU the next day. I went to the game. I mean, Oklahoma is really, really good. So if the ladder to climb up the SEC was difficult before, it's even more difficult now.
Okay. I'm now going to flip a page here. And if you were in a room with a committee, okay, North Carolina is squarely on the bubble, right?
I'm not sure why, but yes, I get the premise.
Okay. Does their history, does their blue blood status play at all in that room?
No, none whatsoever. I'm not a believer in that. I know there are a lot of people who, kind of think that way in terms of conspiracy. The blue bloods are protected and whatnot. I just don't see it that way. I know that they won 6 games in a row to get themselves into consideration. I know they played a great non-conference schedule. I think 5th best in the country. I think their net is okay at 40. But who did you play? Check. Who did you beat? They're 1-11 in quad 1 games. So they didn't beat anybody. And here's the tough part for Carolina. They would have to get, I think, to the championship game of the ACC tournament and maybe beat Clemson and Louisville. I haven't even looked at the bracket. I don't even know where they are on the bracket. But they're going to have to beat Clemson, Louisville, and or Duke to either win the tournament, get the AQ, or to get in better at-large positioning. Now, I say that, remember this, it's not just what you do around the bubble. It's other teams. So North Carolina, they need Texas to lose. They need to eliminate Texas from the bubble. They need Oklahoma to lose. They need to try and eliminate that. But I don't see how North Carolina gets in over Oklahoma. I just don't, because Oklahoma has 6 quad 1 wins. I mean, how do you ignore that?
And I think what happens sometimes, and you've made this point a couple times, when you do something very well in the non-conference, when you beat good teams, they still count in that room, despite the fact those games were played in December.
Yeah, you and I have talked about how many SEC wins it would take to get in the NCAA tournament. That's not every game that you played is looked as with equal value. There is no, well, they need to get 8 wins in the SEC. No, that is never discussed. It's your complete body of work. And you talked about Oklahoma. Oklahoma had those wins in the battle for Atlantis. That Louisville win, Georgia looks pretty good right now. Georgia beat St. John's in the non-conference. Okay, that win's like fine wine right now. That it's aging so well. So from that standpoint, yeah, when you put those in your back pocket, they count just as much on Selection Sunday as if you just played and beat that team the week before.
Well, don't forget, you can watch us live on Facebook and YouTube. Listen later on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube Podcasts, any of the nearly 40 platforms where you find your favorite podcast, and like, follow, and subscribe so you can never miss an episode. We'll take a break. We'll come back and wrap up our Hoop There It Is for this week. Stay with us.
Crystal Air and Water, we've got a winning offer for you. As you switch off the AC and turn on the heat, why not upgrade to a new system? Take advantage of our amazing financing options. You can get a 12.99 fixed rate for 5, 10, or 15 years, or you can score big with 12 months, same as cash financing. Don't fumble on comfort this season. Crystal Air and Water has you covered. Call them today at 352-333-0460 or visit acpenguin.com.
License number CMC 1249384.
The State Farm Personal Price Plan helps you create an affordable price just for you.
Contact local agent Roos Ogra for your personal price plan today.
Meldon Law has been serving personal injury victims since 1971. In those days, Jeffrey Meldon's presence as an attorney in the music scene dubbed him with the nickname the Hippie Attorney. And although times have changed, 2 things haven't. Our commitment to bettering our community by helping the injured.
Albert, are you ready to go to the game?
And our love for the Florida Gators.
If you bleed orange and blue, Meldon Law is the firm for you.
Is your bank dropping the ball, not playing with heart or skill? then you need to check out the scouting report on Campus USA Credit Union. That's a 5-star recruit if I've ever seen one. Campus has it all, like great rates and products, friendly service, and smart game plans for you and your money. So why not put some star power in your financial life? Visit campuscu.com or any campus service center today.
Honey, can I recruit you to take the garbage out?
Silverback Concrete is a family-led team of heavy concrete specialists that builds commercial structures for contractors who expect unrivaled quality, including the head ball coach's restaurant, Spurrier's Gridiron Grill. You only have one chance to make a building that holds up to the highest standards through all kinds of weather. Visit silverbackconcrete.co to see why they're the #1 choice in the Southeast. You stand on it, we stand by it. Silverback Concrete's got your back.
I'm tired of you living in pain, and I want you to get real lasting relief from chronic pain in your knees, back, shoulders, and hips. QC Kinetics can get you moving again with cutting-edge regenerative treatments with no drugs, no downtime, and no surgery. Stop putting it off. Call now and schedule your free consultation. Call QC Kinetics now in Gainesville, Ocala, and the Villages. 352-400-4550. 352-400-4550.
Florida Victorious is a powerful chapter in UF's NIL story.
We are
Florida Victorious.
Gator fans. Let's get on board now, okay?
Florida Victorious, proud NIL partner of the Florida Gators.
At Titan MRI and Imaging, you'll visit the only locally owned and operated MRI imaging center in town. Start feeling better today. It's your choice. TitanMRI.com.
All right, our last couple of minutes, I want to ask you this, Mark. The NIT is still there.
Yeah.
So question one with that, will teams still go to that if invited? And then there is a competing tournament as well with its own set of its set of things that we'll discuss.
Yeah, the new one is called the College Basketball Crown. It's been developed by Fox. It's going to have a 16-team tournament that will take teams from the Big 10, Big 12, and Big East, where Fox has contracts, as well as some at-large participants. The thing that is going to be curious for me to watch, the transfer portal opens next week, I believe. The College Basketball Crown doesn't start play until March 31st. So it's 2 weeks later. So I don't know how that's going to play out with the portal. That'll be interesting to follow along. The NIT, I think, has kind of changed its reward system. I know that, for instance, both changed its reward system, both in overall things to gain for a program and the way the teams are selected. So no longer is every conference regular season winner who doesn't win the tournament an automatic qualifier. You have to be higher up the ladder in Ken Palm's, I think, the top 125. And the SEC and the ACC get 2 automatic qualifiers who do not go to the NCAA tournament. And that could be anybody. So South Carolina could end up in the NIT. What I said earlier about changing the reward, I used to always think this, and I think it was true. You could play in the NIT with one eye on the following season because there's some development involved in terms of that. You get a taste of the postseason where maybe your program hasn't been in the postseason for a while. I don't know that that's so much the case in this day and age of the transfer portal. What I do think it is, and it has not lost this one iota, it's a reward for the players in that program, period. Now, if they opt not to play for whatever reason, the programs opt not to play, I think my personal opinion is if you're invited, you should play, unless there's some really extraordinary circumstances. Your best player got hurt in the conference tournament, things of that nature. But I think you should play. So it'll be interesting to watch these kind of 2 competing postseason tournaments play out.
Give yourself a plug. Where can people see you this week?
This week, I'm in the Southland Conference Tournament with Kevin Fitzgerald. Tuesday night on the U at 7 with the semifinal game, and then the championship game on ESPN2 on Wednesday is an early start, 5 o'clock, so you can get home and turn it on. And then the following week, I'll be in the NIT, both in the first round and the second round. First rounds are Tuesday, Wednesday. Second round are on the weekend. So I've still got some work to do.
You always seem to, yes. And we'll be back with Mark next week for another edition of Hoop There It Is. Thanks to Zach for doing a great job, as always, producing the program. We thank you for watching. For Mark Wise, I'm Steve Russell. So long, everybody.
We thank you for listening to Hoop There It Is with Steve Russell and ESPN's Mark Wise. Hoop There It Is, a service of Silverback Concrete, Titan MRI, and QC Kinetics. It's available for you via podcast at WRUF.com and on the WRUF radio app. Hoop There It Is, paid for by Weeby Marketing and produced by ESPN 98.1 FM, 850 AM, WRUF, the home of the Florida Gators.